Hey there, and welcome back to Scrap with Penny, where paper meets story. And today I am going to be doing a layout for the Peartree Cutfile called Wild by Nature, which I haven't cut yet because I'm not sure if I want to cut it in wood grain or khaki or white or brown. And so I'll just do a little quick insert here in the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. And I've used this collection recently for my kids going to Portland, but it's such a good collection, and I'm going to use different papers so it'll show you a completely different look for this collection. And I've got 3 simple photos for this trip. This was spring break 2015. Our youngest was in college and he wanted a trip with his dad, and so my husband never we never say no to travel with our kids. I was deep in work, and so they set off to explore the Wild West and had a great trip. So there's a chance I'll do a companion page later with the other pictures from their trip, but I picked 3 to kind of highlight and go on what I'll consider a feature page with the cut file title. And this is a buffalo they saw in the Dakotas, and it's in the Black Hills. I think that's the Dakotas. I could be showing my ignorance. And then here they are at the Grand Teton National Park, and this is inside the Grand Teton National Park, and it's my son, and I love it. And so I'm going to do a simple design. I've got my sketch decided, and I'll insert the sketch, and we're going to do a horizontal strip of paper at the top with some vertical bands down the side. I'm going to put my pictures here, and my cut file is going to be down here. And I think this should look good and come together pretty quickly, but you know, whenever I say that, invariably I jinx myself. So let me set these to the side. These will end up being 3x3 and 3x4 when printed and matted, and they'll go across the whole page. So here's the kit. And I pulled this as a candidate for a background page, and my sketch has a vertical piece of paper, so I'm considering this, and I'm considering bumping it up against the trees, but it might be too much green, so I'm not sure. I could also use the stripe to go up against this. I don't know. I need to figure out some time to use those feathers, but I'm just not sure. I thought this would be a really fun paper for the top. Colorful. I don't know. Okay. And then the other thing I considered briefly was this. I don't like how this looks, so it's a no. And here's my little record album sleeve that has this collection in it. I've got the, they call it ephemera. I've got the foam title stickers, which I won't use. I could pull in some of these puppy stars though. I've got the A5 paper stack, and remember, this is not 6x8. This is smaller than that because they're based in Australia. I've got some stickers, and then these are the other pieces of paper in the collection. And some of these I have 2 of. You know, the green could be a good paper to use for backing the cut file, so that would be vibrant and strong. Here's the other sides. Kind of sloppy, but I'm trying to work fast. I just love the cut file so much. I wanted to try and squeeze this in. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is where I always start. I'm going to trim my photos, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I know I want that for my top, and then I know I want this. I'm going to use this blue because to me it's representative of the mountains. And man, I'm looking at this. I just don't know if I can let myself use it. But I'll have to cut it, so we'll try it out. And the other reason why I'm thinking no to this is because I'll already have a multicolored sheet. And I think when you have, I don't know though, I don't know, we'll see. I'll just stop rambling. I'll stop recording and I'll cut pictures. But we're going to have fun today. And have you ever been to the Grand Teton National Park? And I've already asked if you've got this collection, but man, I love this collection and I'm excited to play with it today. Hey, so I am back and I've got all of my papers trimmed up and I think it is so cute. And because of the way I went with the borders on the side, and in looking at the pictures in my photos, I decided to go with the gray on the cut file. And I love the dark contrast and how it picks up the darker tones of the buffalo. So it's a good contrast against the wood grain, and it's a little unorthodox on the color, but I think if you stick with me on it, it's going to work out. So now let's talk about stitching. I'm kind of tempted to stitch along the scallop edge, but I'm not really sure. But I know that I want to stitch the little mountain tops on the blue strip next to it. And the other thing I'm debating is what kind of mat do I need to put under my photos, because I know that I want them to pop up off of that wood grain a little bit. And so the next step, I think, is to cut my insets on my file, and the measurements for this file are the same as what they're downloaded. As you know, when you get the cut file from Marie, you can get the download or you can get it pre-cut, and so I always like to call out when I alter it. And I think this is a great size title. I don't know if I'll center it up or if I'll keep it to the left, because I do want to build some clusters around the page. You know, I love my little embellishments. So I need a good contrast color on the photo mat, and I need to think about the colors in my pictures while I decide what papers to use to back the cut file. I might consider stitching on the banners up top. I'm not really sure, but I will pop the letters up on foam, and I'm loving how the gray cardstock matches with the gray in the cocoa vanilla. So I'm going to stop my rambling and I'm going to pause the recording and go cut my insets for the cut file. So I am back and I've got my insets cut, and I'm in love with how it looks. I love the orange and the yellow in the leaves. I love the blue in the wild and the green in the nature. And I thought, you know, this is a perfect time to use that pine tree print because we don't have a lot of pine trees here in North Texas. So on to my journaling. I've got my journaling printed up and I've got my Hero Art Sentiment strip die. I always link the tutorial. Nicole at Coley Bean is the one that came up with this idea. She's got a Google Doc and you copy it to your drive. I print it on my PictureMate 400 and then you run it through your die cutting machine and you get these crisp and pristine and straight die cut journal strips. And I'll pop them up on foam. I will trim off the jagged edges on the right. I like there to be a little difference in where they end, and so I kind of intentionally make the ends of my sentences move around on the template, and so it won't take too long to just put the foam on them, and they're going to go right up here under this picture of my son. So here they are, trimmed up on the edge, and I've got the foam underneath them, and this is kind of how I see them working right up here, kind of wrapping around the title and making sure there's a little bit of breathing room. And so the layout is coming together really quickly. I love how it's looking, and I think the next thing I need to do is, you know, bearing in mind the colors in my title, I need to go to the embellishment pack and sticker sheet and see what I can find that will work with this layout. So I'm back and I've got my paper all taped down and I've got some embellishments pulled, and I did decide I want to do a light green mat against my photos, and so I'm going to use this little acrylic corner. I use these quite often. I bought them in 2023 2020 or 2021 for card making, and I've just moved them into my scrapbooking arsenal. So I know that this one is a little too wide. I'm going to have to trim it down. So I'm going to mount my two outer photos, and then I'll get a measurement for what I need to adapt my middle photo to. And I'm just coming up against this pattern paper edge. You don't have to, be up against the corner. So I grabbed these corners off Etsy, and what I like about them is you get quick, consistent, even margins. I had a subscriber, Robin, say if you don't have a 12 by 12 MISTI, you can also use a scoreboard. And I've also said you could tape it down on your surface with low tack tape. So this base measures 4 1/8. So if I take off 1/8 on each side, then that means my mat needs to be 3 7/8. And it was at 4. So I just took 1/8 off of the mat in the photo. It might be easier just to visually center this. Okay, I think it's all aligned pretty good. And that's all I need this big guy for. And I've shared that one of the reasons why I put my mats down first is that it then makes it a lot easier to, in my opinion, get your photos down. And I've had some subscribers say that they've shared this trick and they like it. So if you have started putting your photo mats down and then putting your pictures onto the page after that, drop a note in the comments and let me know. Looks pretty good. So I'm not going to stitch on the banners. The reason I'm not going to stitch on the banners is I don't have an end game plan for these little banner ties, and I think it would be really hard to get a stitch on it. And I think when you went to that level of detail, it would get to be too much, because I was just thinking about coming along on the rectangle, and I think that would be cute, but I'm going to say it's a no for now. I did want to share that I use this for getting the gray cut file onto the paper. You need to follow the can directions and use it well ventilated, but for me it's a great and quick way to get adhesive over everything at one time and get it laid down. And then these were the two A5 pieces of paper I used, and I had rotated this sideways. I thought it gave more interest. So I wanted to share those two tips. And then these are the Tim Holtz Recoil scissors, which I use to fussy cut, and I love these. They're very easy to adapt to, and they're very comfortable. So I pulled this paper scrap because I was thinking I might could use little circles here and there. And what I'll do now that I've got my photos down is I'll get my journal strips down, and then I've got some different pieces of the ephemera pack pulled that might work. And I'm not sure, I am leaning towards stitching on these little mountains. I think it would be easy, quick, and very subtle. So it would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just be 5 stitches per little mountain. And I think I'll do that first, and then I'll decide on this. I'm going to pause the recording and get my journal strips down and start on this, and I'm going to keep on moving on, and I'll be back. I've got my journal strips taped down, and I've pulled some little embellishment ideas together, and I'm thinking it looks pretty good. So there's like green right here, but then I repeat the orange, the yellow, and the blue. And then over here I've got the blue, the green, and then the orange and yellow right there. That says it's a wild world, choose your own adventure, is from the sticker sheet, and this little phrase is from the A5 pad, the little tiny element sheet. And this is a sticker, and these are die cuts. And then I've got a die cut, 2 die cuts, and I've got a third one of these that I want to work in somewhere. I'm not sure where. I'll figure that out toward the end. And then this is from the sticker sheet. And these little blue compasses I punched from this piece of the A5 paper with a little hole punch for my stash. And So I feel good enough about all of these embellishments to tape it down. And I want to go ahead and do this. I don't want to stitch down here where I don't need to. And I think that what I'll do is just kind of make it so if I need to make a little line, I can. So when I go to tape it down, I'll be mindful of the placement. And I think it's coming along really good. I really like it. It's a fun collection. And I think this big cut file down here at the bottom is the perfect anchor to the page. So I am back and it is done. And I was just going to add this one last little touch up here at the top. It's a die cut that repeats the pattern on the paper. And I thought that would be a nice way to kind of round off this cluster up here. So I'm just placing it to where you can still see the stars that I pulled from this sticker sheet. I've got 2 stars here, and I've got 1 here, and I've got 1, 2, 3 down here. I think they're the perfect little touch. I will say they're not sticky anymore, and I put liquid adhesive under all of them because one of them fell off while I was working on my stitching. Okay, so let's talk about where we ended up. I love the stitching. I actually love this little pattern because it could represent mountains or arrows. And arrows are indicative of travel and adventure. And I liked the little touch, the texture of the stitching adds to it. And you know, I had talked about stitching over here, but ultimately I decided against it because it would become, it's kind of like this. If I stitched here, then I would think, well, do I stitch here and here and here? And then it's too much. So I don't know, maybe I overthink things, but I decided to just let this be the texture on the page. And on my little blue compasses, I put those down flat so you would get some depth in these clusters. And then this are up on foam. This is up on foam. This is up on foam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 elements here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I did good on getting my odd numbers in, and I love how the clusters turned out and how, in my mind, they draw your eye around the page. I just want to circle back real quick to this cut file. If you are not well versed in working with cut files, this is a great kind of beginner level file for you because it would be very easy to trace this and this onto paper because they're large shapes, and then you would just trim around them. And like I said, I always try, if I'm going to do that, to trace onto the back side of the paper. But you know, it's not the end of the world if you don't. And on the letters, it'd be a very simple trace the letters that pop out. You know, they would have been gray in this case. Trace them onto paper and then hand cut. Or if you're familiar with the Silhouette software, you just trace the area, release compound path, and then you've got all of these as individual files that you could cut on your Silhouette or your Cricut with the software, and it would be quick and easy that way if you're familiar with your software. And I just love the Peartree files and playing with them. And I think that the title really does ground the whole page. I love the smiles on my guys' faces and knowing that they had a great time on this trip. And I had so much fun playing with this collection. I just love the cocoa vanilla quality. I love the weight of their paper, and the palette on this paper is so versatile and would work with so many different story topics. I had a lot of fun with it, and I hope that while you've watched this, you've been having fun with something on your desk as well. A quick heartfelt thanks to all of my subscribers. I appreciate so much you being here. And if you haven't yet joined our community, I would invite you to hit that subscribe button, and that way you'll get notices when I have new videos drop. I think this is a wrap for me, so on to the next story. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
I'll be back soon with more layouts, videos, and a little stash busted magic. So please come back and crop with me. Until next time, happy scrapping, and remember, this is where paper meets story. Bye-bye.